All right, looks like we're live. So today's video, hopefully this works, testing a new microphone and audio setup, so maybe we can get rid of all that crackling and stuff we had before. Anyway, so today I'd like to discuss this article on why new phones will never have removable batteries again. And this is something I've been waiting to do for a long time. So I'm going to read this article and I'm going to go through the basic reasons why I think the premise behind this article is wrong and why I think it's out of touch with the average smartphone user. So this article is titled, Why New Phones Will Never Come with Removable Batteries Ever Again. And it says here, Apple rarely apologizes when it messes up. But when it does, it's usually followed by even more fervor and upset users. Case in point, Apple finally admitted it did a poor job communicating to its customers about how and why it slowed down iPhones with older batteries. And while most people will forgive the company and accept its forthcoming solutions, a $29 battery replacement for applicable iPhones and a future software update that'll better explain your device's battery health, there's an equal amount of people who are now slamming the company for not doing even more for its users, like designing iPhones with removable batteries. Cute idea, but it's a little short-sighted. So I just want you to understand language and the way it's being used here, because a lot of modern-day supposed journalists will do this. So over here, cute idea. Like, they're already prepping you for the fact that if you even think that's true, oh, isn't that cute? We're just going to pat you on the head. You want your phone to last more than 2 years because you spent $700 on it? Isn't that cute? It's not that Apple can't make an iPhone with a removable battery, but because it doesn't make any sense to. Removable batteries had their time in the 90s to thousands. So not only are they saying cute, like, oh yeah, isn't that cute, you little out-of-touch child, they're also trying to make you be simultaneous. They're kind of patronizing you and putting you down while simultaneously making it seem like it's chic. Like, you're out of touch, man, for wanting to, you're out of touch for wanting to wear baggy jeans or bell bottoms or listening to big band jazz music from the 40s. You're so out of touch. And let's just go through the rest of this. First, a little history lesson. Asking Apple to make an iPhone with a removable battery will never happen. I know, never say never. But I feel confident making this claim because Apple has never released an iPhone with a battery you could easily remove. The battery's always been sealed inside of the iPhone, and the only way to replace it has been to bring it to Apple for servicing or buy your own tool set and bust open the iPhone yourself and void the warranty in the process. And there's one line here that I forgot to read, but it's very important, where it says, there are other features we prioritize over batteries that can be swapped out. This is very, very important because this is the primary statement, this is the primary hypothesis that I would like to disprove while reading this article. And let's just go to the bat. Long before Steve Jobs hopped on stage in Macworld in January 2007 to introduce the first iPhone to the world, the company had already decided on its strong stance against removable batteries. It was a jarring design choice at the time because just about all phones came with removable batteries, but it ultimately proved to be the right one. While many Android phones touted removable batteries as a feature that distinguished them from the iPhone, you need only look around the current Android landscape to see how that turned out. Can you name a single flagship Android phone today with a removable battery? I can't, and I review these things for a living. This is a very important part. So what we're saying is that because every manufacturer has changed to a design, that must mean that design that design change was requested by users. So we immediately dismiss any alternate hypothesis. We dismiss the idea that this exists. It must exist because everybody wanted it. It couldn't possibly be that reviewers kept slamming phones with removable batteries. Reviewers have an influence on what people buy, so the manufacturers were making devices to please the reviewers and not the end users. No, it must be that people said, you know what? That phone has a removable battery. I'm able to I can just swap the battery out rather than having to use a heat gun or a hot plate or a hairdryer on the back of it, like on the Samsung S7. I'm not going to buy that because I like arts and crafts projects. I want to take a hairdryer out when my phone dies in a year and a half. Yeah, that's totally proof that it was the correct decision because everybody else has copied you. It defeats any idea that maybe the people are just copying Apple. Maybe that that Apple gets the flu and then Samsung sneezes kind of thing, which would be my argument. So, can you name a single flagship Android phone with removable battery? I can't, and I review these for a living. To be fair, there are still phones that have removable batteries, but they're usually budget ones or come from no-name brands. Samsung ditched removable batteries in its two flagship phones, the Samsung Galaxy S and the Galaxy Note, in 2014. And LG, one of the last companies to give up on them, held out until 2016 with the G5. Now we go on to prioritizing other features. So why did these companies stop making phones with swappable batteries? You already know the answer if you're a phone junkie or a tech nerd. And no, the answer is not they're just all copying Apple. When you make a decision not to do something, you're simultaneously making the decision to allow room for something else. Perhaps something that couldn't have been done because of all the trade-offs that prioritized one thing over the other. In the case of phones with removable batteries, phone makers made the deliberate decision to go with sealed batteries for a number of reasons. Here's just a few of them. Removable batteries are convenient, but they also greatly limit the design of a phone. Take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S5 and Note 4. Note any similarities. They both have plastic backs that can be easily pried off to reveal the battery. And that's a good thing, except people wanted better materials. Though the Note 4 had a metal frame, the Samsung S5's plastic body and Band-Aid-like rear caught major flack for being tone deaf to the metal and glass trend that was emerging. Keep in mind, trend. And who sets the trends? Who emerges the trends? But the paid tech bloggers. The paid tech bloggers that are paid to review these and often get free samples from their companies that don't have to care if their phone dies after a year and a half or 2 years because they're going to get another one for free anyway, which is not the same for the users. But anyway, since these individuals that wind up oftentimes getting sample phones for free or having Amazon affiliate accounts that they make enough money from that they can just get a phone, replace a phone easily, not trying to class bait there, but really, you're saying that the average user that lives paycheck to paycheck they're the ones that are saying, I want my device to be $600 and not serviceable. Yeah, it's a great argument. But they said that the company has seen major success from all phones since then. Metal and glass bodies do not simply do not mix well with removable batteries. It's possible to make one. The LG G5 is an example of this, but it's going to be greatly compromised. Sealed batteries have enabled slimmer designs and the use of a new, more luxurious materials that wouldn't have been aesthetically possible if they had to account for a removable back battery. So if we were to go over this idea of the materials, if we look at all the... Here's my opinion on this. The Samsung S5, the back of a Samsung S5, I believe, actually feels nicer than the back of an S7. And here's why. Because when you deal with a Samsung S7, you're dealing with Samsung S7 back fingerprints. And it's kind of gross. We're mostly getting fingerprint sensor stuff here, but yeah, like how does it handle stuff like? But yeah, they started making them with this nicer material, but in reality, as I showed you during my review, it looks like this. And this is nasty. This is really, really nasty. Let's go over the... And like when I use my Moto G, which is $179, it has this really nice feel to it. It has this rugged, matte feel to it where I can't... It's not like I can feel fingerprints and skin oils and all that other stuff. But when you have these, quote, premium materials, end quote, you get stuff that looks like that. Or this. Ew. Just, ugh. Anyway, moving on to the rest of it. Water resistance. You want your phone to survive a drop in a pool or toilet? Repel rain? Good. Then you want a phone with fewer openings and more internal sealing that'll protect its computer bits from frying. Well, you can't have that if you got a cover that could easily pop off and cracks that could potentially allow water to seep in. Well, actually, you can, Mr. Tech Reviewer Matt. So if we were to look up the Samsung S7 liquid resistance rating, which is a sealed design, you'll see, so this has an IP rating of 68. That's IP68. All right, that's pretty good. Now we go to the Samsung S5, and we go for liquid resistance. Let's see what this one is. Okay, this phone is IP67. The S5 is the one that's not sealed shut, that has that nice matte back that you can easily replace. So let's just take a look at the difference between IP67 versus IP68. So IP67 versus IP68. I'm not going to get into some tech white paper. I just like to find some basic stuff here. So let's see what we got. Okay, a 7 rating ensures ingress of water in harmful quantity shall not be possible when the enclosure is immersed in water under defined conditions of pressure and time up to 1 meter of submersion. And a 7 rating guarantees protection up to 30 minutes. Whereas something like an 8 rating, let's see what the 8 rating would do. Oh, come on, give me an idea of IP68. All right, well, let's see what IP68 will do. Let's get a better page here. IP68. Seemed fit to withstand dust, dirt, sand, resistant to submersion at a maximum depth of 1.5 meters underwater for 30 minutes. Okay. And if we go back to the IP67 rating, that actually doesn't make any sense. 7 rating guarantees protection for 30 minutes. We got to get a better description of this. Either that or maybe they're just so close. That is not really... Here we go. Okay, IP67, water resistant, 1 meter for 30 minutes. And on here, it says on Samsung site, 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. Okay, so what this dude is telling me is that my phone has to have a non-user removable battery because I need an extra 0.5 meters in the water. Now, if you're going to ask your average user, because here, a lot of the argument is that the users are pushing for this. If I told you, you have 2 choices. You can have a phone that can spend 30 minutes in water 1 meter down, and when the battery dies in 2 years, replacing it will require popping off the cover with your fingernails and just popping in a new one. Or you could have a phone that could survive 1.5 meters down, an extra whole 0.5 meters extra for those of you that just have that extra large size toilet that you like to put the phone into. But replacing your battery will be 30 minutes of cursing, potentially breaking your phone, boiling it up with a heat gun and picking off layers of adhesive and glue and screws. What do you think the average user is going to say? What do you think the average person is going to say if I were to come to them with that proposition? Now, I would think that the average reasonable person would say, you know what? 30 minutes of liquid resistance at 1 meter submerged, I can live with that. I don't need to have it sealed to get that extra half a meter or extra 2 meters or extra few hours of resistance. That's not worth it to me over having a device that's easily serviceable. That, I think, would be what you get from average people, especially people who honestly haven't even thought about this, because my experience working in retail has been something like most people just buy devices, and I know this is going to sound silly to you who are tech savvy, most buy this stuff without even thinking about this. They don't even think about whether or not they should ask if it has a removable battery. They're not thinking about the fact that the battery in their $600 device is going to have considerably less life after a year and be excruciatingly, quick to discharge 2 years in. So if you actually point this out to them and then you say, here's the procedure for replacing a battery in an S5, bam, you flick off the back cover, you replace the battery. Here's the procedure for replacing a battery in an S7, which is heat gun, Metro card, guitar pick, whatever the heck you want to do, I would think that the average person would be reasonable enough to say 1 meter, 30 minutes, good enough for me. And like if you look at this, will you want your phone to survive a drop in the toilet? Good. You want a phone that's sealed. How many people have a toilet where, you know what? Oh, 1 meter is not enough liquid resistance for me. I need a toilet with I need a phone that is 1.5 meters of liquid resistance, because my toilet, I got the luxurious model toilet, man. I don't want to have the water jump up into my ass while I'm taking a shit when the shit drops. So I got that toilet that goes 1.5 meters down into the floor. I don't see that. And now we go on to the rest. More room for other stuff. I'm not going to get into all the nerdy bits and things about battery design, but a removable battery hogs up more physical space with the already tightly packed confines of a modern phone. Unlike a sealed battery, a removable battery requires an extra layer of protection to shield it from everyday impact. This adds extra thickness. On a phone where every millimeter counts and can be felt in the hands, there's little competitive edge to go thicker when everybody is making their phones thinner. Instead of wasting space with extra padding for the battery, designers and engineers can fit in other features such as better, possibly even stereo speakers, wireless charging, better gaskets for weather resistance, or a fingerprint sensor on the back. Now, just since we're on the topic of iPhones, just since we're in this topic of iPhones and talking about IP68, I just thought I would go over the thing that's missing on the iPhone 7 that was not missing on the ones that came before. And yeah, since you filled it, you got space for that thing that was see. IP68 really allowed them to add more functionality to the phone, more features to the phone. Yeah, you're totally getting more functionality out of your phone now. You're getting a lot more out of it. Let's check Motorola, other companies that are starting to copy Apple here. Yeah, yeah, yep. That sealed battery. It's getting you're getting a lot more for your money with that sealed battery, right? Anything look like it's missing there? Anything look like it's missing there? This is the problem. This is the problem with this whole phone anorexia. We live in this time where this body positive movement is gaining more and more force. I'm not going to say, I've already talked about what I think about that movement, but you know what I would be really for? I'd be for a smartphone body positive movement. Let's embrace big, beautiful smartphones. Let's embrace big, beautiful batteries and big, beautiful headphone jacks. Let's embrace a body positive movement for smartphones. That's something that I could really get behind. Now, let's continue down this. Weird shaped batteries. Removable batteries are also limited to essentially being rectangles or squares for easy installation and removals. And if you know anything about battery design, you'd know that phone batteries are built to squeeze more power with unconventional designs. For example, the LG G2 used a step battery design that packed more battery into the curved corners, which would normally be wasted on a battery with straight edges. The iPhone X also uses a unique L-shaped battery made of 2 battery cells. Had these phones used a removable rectangle-shaped battery, they wouldn't get the stellar battery life that they do in the svelte designs. You'd have a phone that looks like something enclosed in an OtterBox. Basically big, heavy, and ugly. No, just ew. No thank you. It's time to move on. And again, if we were to look at some of these batteries, let's just take a look at something like the iPhone 8. iPhone 8 battery. Yep, look at that non-standard shape. That's not a rectangle. That's totally not a rectangle. This is, look at that non-standard crazy Z, duck vagina-shaped battery that they have there. Watch the Frank's video on the duck, by the way, if you want to know where that analogy came from. There's a Frank one on YouTube. Anyway, look at this. Look at that. Let's check out another battery. Samsung S7 battery. Let's see these marvels of engineering here. Let's see how they're using that space inside the phone. Oh, look at that. Look at that equilateral triangle 3D battery. Look at that crazy. Look at this. Yeah. We need, yeah, that's totally what we need. Yep, yep. Because every flagship phone, let's say Moto Z battery. Let's see what all these people that don't have a removable battery are doing. Oh yeah, yep. Just zigzagging like those things in the top of a stegosaurus. Who writes this stuff? Anyway, let's continue. Removable batteries are more environmentally friendly because it'll lead to less e-waste since you won't feel compelled to upgrade to a new phone if your current one works just fine. I understand the reasons for wanting a removable battery. I really do. They'd make situations like this one Apple's caught in a lot easier for users. Brad Burns says it's not a rectangle, it's a proprietary parallelogram. Yes, that's exactly what it is. A proprietary parallelogram. They'd make it, let's see. Removable batteries also make it easier to carry a spare when you really need it, like when you're out late or when you don't have time for a charge. But much like the death of the PS2 port, floppy disk, or headphone jack, it's time to move on. Removable batteries are practical and limited by old designs and technology. When phones were as thick as Snickers and weren't as feature-packed as they are today. In a perfect world, you'd be able to get an iPhone X with a removable battery. But we don't live in a perfect world. Ours is filled with trade-offs, and we've all already decided we value all of the aforementioned features more than a removable battery. If we didn't, the iPhone would have died a quick death years ago. So wish all you want, but it's not going to happen. The future of phones will be even more integrated, with even more custom parts and more sealed than they are now. Let's look over the rest of this article. So, for example, this is another good one that I got to bring up. So it's though the Note 4 had a metal frame, the S5's plastic body and Band-Aid rear caught major flack for being tone deaf to the metal and glass trend that was emerging. So let's just see what he means. So he's saying that Samsung was catching major flack, meaning they weren't doing well, meaning there was something wrong that needed to be corrected. So let's see what it was that Samsung was doing wrong that needed to be corrected. Okay, so it looks like HTC is throwing shade at Samsung. One of these things is not like the other. They're showing you Samsung back, and they're showing you HTC backs. So if we're talking in terms of success, if we're talking in terms of what a company should do based on what is doing well for them. If we're talking about the fact that Samsung is catching major flack, let's see what's going on with HTC. So this is 2014. HTC's thinking their shit doesn't smell. They're making some wise-ass tweets. Oh, what do you know? Oh, check this out. HTC declared effectively worthless. Wow. See, even my cat Oreo is sad for them. Let's take a look at this. Oh, man. Yep. This is some sad stuff. Let's just X this out here. All right, one statistic tells you why HTC collapsed and why Android is in so much trouble. Look at that stock. Yep. That pure metal back sure did you a lot of good. HTC stock has sunk so low that its entire market capitalization is now worth less than the cash it has in the bank. Are you kidding me? And you're using this company as an example for why Samsung is making the wrong decisions? I'm sorry. I've never seen a point where Samsung stock is worth, their market capitalization is actually worth less than the company. Do people look this up? Do they Google? Anyway. This is all just a pile. Ask the average person, what would you rather have? Do you want a phone that after a year and a half you can replace the battery on, or do you want it to be a quarter of a micron thinner? Because let me tell you something. This stuff is not being driven by users. I have not met a single person that is happy that the headphone jack was removed from a phone. I have not met a single person that is happy that the battery is not removable. Like, normal consumers don't look up things and go, that phone has a battery that I can replace? Unacceptable. No, they don't. And you don't need these designs either. If you look at something like the Htc Sensation 4G, this was not exactly my favorite phone, but it had a pretty nice back of the phone. It was a premium build. It felt fancy. Granted, this is old. This is 2011 we're going back here. But this had quite a premium build feel to it, and this had a user replaceable battery. There were lots of devices that had premium build quality that had fancy batteries. That had removable batteries. And man, I don't see this. And you know what I think is going to happen? I think that eventually somebody's going to catch on. One of these new companies to the game is going to catch on and realize that making phones for tech reviewers is not as good a proposition as making phones for people. And a lot of these sites like CNET and all these websites that you can read reviews of where they're saying the materials are not as nice, or this phone is within 0.008 millimeters of that phone, but this one's 0.009 millimeters thinner, so I'm going to buy that one instead. That stuff, that kind of media and journalism, in my opinion, is dying. People are looking to, the tech reviewers like Jerry Rig Everything that actually test what people want to know. Hey, will this scratch in my pocket? Will this break if it bends or it drops? The stuff that real people are actually concerned with. And I think that if people start making phones with good build quality that are 0.001 millimeters thicker, that have removable batteries that tech reviewers like, that are quality and good, like Jerry Rig Everything and the others that are similar, whose names I forget at the time, those people are going to shine a light on the brands that make devices that are repairable, that make devices that have better longevity. And this whole trend of just pleasing tech reviewers that do nothing but worry about these basic aesthetics, that have their tape measure calibrated to the 1,000th of a millimeter when they're reviewing phones, that just have this obsession with bezels. Like, phones cannot have bezels. I do not want a bezel. I want it to be as thin as possible. I want it to be as delicate as possible. This thing needs to break if I drop it from a nightstand. I want no bezel. I want no edge. And that's another thing with these phones. People, I see this whole nonsense with like the Samsung Edge. Who asked for this? Who wants a phone that when you're holding it in your hand, the side of your fingers or your palm winds up touching random stuff on the phone or causing it to act funny because instead of having a bezel, your hand is now activating the touchscreen because somebody decided the touchscreen should flow over into the edge. This is the type of BS that tech reviewers came up with because they're always criticizing the bezel. The bezel needs to be smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it doesn't exist. And you know what? We're going to go one step further on those tech reviewers. Not only are we not going to give them a bezel, we're going to wrap the touchscreen around the whole damn phone. People, regular customers, they never asked for this. As Acoustic Guitar Peter says in chat, there is no trend. People don't want this. Customers don't care. Customers want removable batteries. Customers want phones where the screen doesn't just randomly touch itself while you're holding it because the screen is being wrapped around the phone. People don't view their phones from the side so that they can read stock ticker information off of the 0.001 millimeter space in between where the bezel used to be and where your removable back for your battery used to be. It's just not the way it works. And I think that it's the job of consumers to start talking back and to stop allowing companies to believe that tech reviewers set what they want. If you have a phone and your battery is dying right now and you can't just go online and buy one for $10 and pop it in real easy, thank a tech reviewer. If you're using a Samsung S7 Edge or an S8 where you don't even have the option of the Edge in the normal version, or the S6 Edge, if you're using one of those phones where when you're holding it in your hand, it randomly, the touchscreen starts acting up because your palm or your fingers are touching the side of the phone, thank a tech reviewer, because this is not stuff that's driven by normal people. So that's it for today. This is what I think on smartphones, removable batteries, backs, this whole ridiculous, never-ending battle to nowhere, dick-waving contest of who has the thinnest phone. Nobody cares. If it fits in your pocket and it doesn't weigh a pound, people don't really care. They're thin enough. We're not trying to carry around pieces of paper. So that's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. So I'm going to read some of your comments before I go, and we'll work on that. Let me just get the window size increased so I could see and read the comments, since I'm almost 30. I'm getting old. I can't expect that I'm going to be able to read all this in the tiny little font size that it has. Rodrigo says, what if I receive a call while swimming? Well, in that case, you may be better off with something like the Samsung S8. The removable battery is not as important if you need to be able to take phone calls while swimming underwater. What I would ask you, though, is how do you plan on talking underwater? Because that's going to be one of those things that's kind of difficult. TCRS says my phone is IP68 and has a headphone jack. Yep. My Galaxy S5 has a headphone jack and is water resistant. Indeed it is. Big, beautiful phones, indeed. Give me a 10,000 milliamp battery and larger speakers. Damn straight, that's another thing. A lot of these phones, they sound tinny as hell, and they don't need to sound that tinny. If you told people, we could give you genuinely better speakers, but you have to give up, this little millimeter of space, I think that they'd be all for it. Power bank can charge phone. Indeed, but when your internal battery dies and you need a power bank, now you're if you don't want to replace it, you're in one of these odd situations where you had a battery that was you had a thinner phone for the first year, but now you have a phone that's thicker than Rosie O'Donnell for the rest of time. And that's assuming your battery never starts to expand, which happens every now and then. It is so the phones will fit in skinny jeans. Oh, I hope that's not true. So that means that... Oh, Jesus. The death of masculinity is driving phone designs. Paul S. says, Windows Phone forever, in all caps. I can now say I've met one person in my life that uses a Windows Phone. I still can't believe that Paul manages to use a Windows Phone. Awesomus Maximus says, I want a phone so thin that if I hold it wrong, it will cut my fingers off. That's probably the next. Seeing that the S9 is going to be maybe around $1,250, they will keep raising the prices because people just keep buying them anyways. Stop buying crazy expensive phones. Yeah, I think that that's what's going on, is that we've gotten to a point where phones are so good. If you had an S6 and it still works, even if you had an S5 and it still works, is there really a compelling reason to get an S8 or an S9? If you had an iPhone 6 and you don't have Touch IC failure yet, and you haven't updated iOS so you haven't gotten it to slow down over time, do you really need the new one? Are you really going to get much functionality out of it? And my argument is you're probably not. So the only people that are going to be willing to spend more money on phones nowadays, in my opinion, are people who need the newest, are people who are paying more so for the status or the trendiness of having the newest and the latest, rather than people that actually need a new phone. Those individuals tend to be the one with the most disposable income, and people with the most disposable income tend to be the people who are willing to spend $1,000 to $1,200 for a phone. Because when you were going from the iPhone 2 to the iPhone 4, that's a big difference. If you're going from the Samsung Galaxy S4G in 2010 to an S4, that's also a noticeable difference. But when you're going to something like an S6 to an S8, okay, a little bit of a bigger screen. All right, faster processor, but I don't know. Are you encoding X264 all day on your phone? Like, meh. All right, that's it for today. I'm out of here, and yep, that's what I think of that article.